Yeah. We've been around the world. We're not in the hood no more. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Look. I'm front row watching SmackDown in the garden. We made a fall from them basements and apartments. Used to have them dubs of sour on the park bench. Down to put in work, it don't matter how the job get. I felt like last summer could've been my hardest. Sleeping in my car, guard testing where my heart is. I can never let the devil tell me what I'm worth. Cause I came from nothing, now I've been around the earth.
In the same since I elevated. So many things I could've said but couldn't tell you, baby. You keep on thinking I'ma change, I'ma sell it, baby. And ain't I tell you that you're pretty when you're jealous, baby. You know thuggin' it been a modus. I'm that nigga, I thought you noticed. Why you think I flooded the whole wrist? Yeah, they doubted, but now they focus.
Welcome to Wrestling the Rap Game. And as you see, we have a very special guest to the podcast. We have Aleister Black joining us. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I think your viewers, the first thing is like, why is that black metal dude on a rap podcast? We'll get into that.
Exactly. You know, don't judge a book by its cover, as they say, right?
Damn right.
And I can't thank you enough for joining us. It's truly an honor for you to be joining us.
Honor's all mine, man. I appreciate you guys coming down and making my gym look even cooler.
We are in the inside the ring, as you see, in the dark arts.
The dark arts.
How is it? Is it a battle kingdom? Is it
a battle kingdom? I don't think it's been described as a battle kingdom yet. No, this is a training facility for myself and my wife, where we train performance with like our training partners and stuff like that. We teach, we train. We kind of set this up with the idea of, I need a place. I don't have a lot of time. We were building the house, and one of my goals was like, all right, even back when I was in the Netherlands, I love teaching. I absolutely love teaching, and I love training. So I wanted to combine the things. The one thing that I really want is to make a place where I can do what I need to do, where my wife can do what she needs to do in terms of professional wrestling, because obviously that's the main focus. But because we train Muay Thai here, weightlifting, conditioning, you name it, and of course pro wrestling. So I needed this to be a place where both her and me could really thrive and really dive into what we do on a new level. And luckily we are surrounded by really good training partners that in a fluctuating rotation come in and out and train with us and make us better while we make them better. It's just like this thing has been so
like iron sharpening iron.
That's the best definition. Absolutely. Like it's been absolutely phenomenal. Like I think that because of this place, back in the day when I would watch wrestling, or I would do Muay Thai, or I was watching something and I would get an idea. I'd be like, oh, I gotta write it down. Now it's like, I'll be right back, and I'll run into the ring and I'll just kind of like videotape doing it and I kind of go into the paces, and now that I have it, it's like a direct feedback kind of thing, which for us as professional athletes, because that is what we are, is like of the utmost importance. The ability to constantly train. The trap, however, is that sometimes when you walk in and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling good. Well, there's the door to the living room, so but I mean, that very, very rarely does that happen. It's funny because I was having the same conversation with Buddy Matthews. He lives very close by, and we're talking about training, and he just put up a gym in his barn, and he was like, "Yeah, the only problem is that when you drive through the gym, you're like, well, I'm here now, might as well do it. When you walk into this, sometimes you'll be like."
I just want to sit down.
And like, to be honest, I think it happened once. And I was even like 45 minutes into the workout. I was like, this is just not happening. So I walked back out. But for the most part, this is like this is doing exactly what we needed it to do. So the dark arts.
And I just want to thank you from the last two times, like the way you and Selena, opened your doors for me, making me feel at home. Cooked the promise. It was amazing.
Thank you.
That me and you talked about seasoning for like
Absolutely.
15 minutes. Like, you know, I guess a trait that people don't know that you have is like you cook your ass off.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And I appreciate you opening your doors for me, making me feel at
absolutely.
home.
Yeah, I think I've always liked cooking because even like, you know, we do so much meal prepping and stuff like that. You know, at one point your diet gets so stale that you really start like, all right, what do I got to do to prevent myself from diving into the cookie jar? You know what I mean? So you start reading, you start experimenting, and it just becomes this whole like trade. And I have a really bad tendency of not being able to sit still. I have to always do something, and I like creating stuff. I like being creative, and you can be very creative with food. Yeah, and you can learn a lot from doing food. And
absolutely, as you can tell, I don't know if you guys can, if you guys can notice, I got very acquainted with food.
There we go. But you know, it's another thing. It's the same with this gym. Like you know, the way we built the kitchen was for me to go, okay, now I can dive into even better. This whole house is almost this whole house is almost built for like performance and not for like you know, relaxation. I joke, but it's the same with a lot of things. And it was funny. We had a show about a couple days ago. And I'm sitting there with Buddy and Brody and his wife, Emily, and his aunt and uncle were there, who are very pivotal in her life, and they're great people. And we were talking, and her uncle started talking to me about all the stuff that he does on the side. And it was kind of like I was looking into a vision of my older self, because he was like, well, and then I started experimenting with this, and then I started creating this, and then I started doing cast iron, and then I started to move around with like, I want to know how black powder works. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm the same. Right? I love learning things, making things. Like I love painting, I love iron working. I do a lot of stuff with firearms where I take them apart. I want to know how everything works. You know, like I've been dissecting. I've been pulling apart my car just because I want to know how does it work. To me, like learning is the base of all life. You know, I think the purpose of life is learning knowledge. And as corny as that sounds, I think all we do every single day, no matter what it is we have this experience, right? And experience is knowledge, because your body
absolutely
experiences this and learns from it. So I think that the purpose of life is to obtain knowledge. So I really enjoy creating, being creative, and learning about things, whether that's from books, the internet, cars, firearms, hell, even the way bullets are manufactured. I want to know, how does it work? Walkie-talkies, like, I'll dissect it, I'll pull it apart, and let's see if I can put it back together myself. And, you know, I started doing stuff with welding, and I don't know, man, like, the older I get, the more my interests kind of vary.
I mean, that's what they say, that anybody who thinks they know everything is
you're
foolish.
Done. Yeah, because if you should always strive to know more, but I think in today's setting, if I can be as critical for a second on society, I feel like we have confused the idea that being argumentative is intelligence, and therefore we think that we know everything, right? And entitlement doesn't teach you anything. It teaches you what not to do, but you're not listening, right? Yeah. It's actually a block on knowledge. Learning and listening is the thing that is going to make you progress in life. And I think stuff like that is always important to keep in the back of your mind, that you have to be willing to learn. So much confusion and so much distraction nowadays in this world. I'm pretty sure that the length of this conversation, people will be distracted by this for a while. You know what I mean? Or I'll make it so bland and boring that after 4 minutes, people have already checked out at this point.
I think the people who, as you say, are willing to learn, like they're learning, people who are fans of you are learning different layers of you now. Like, I'm sure there's fans of you who probably didn't know that you enjoyed hip hop. There's probably fans of you that didn't know you cook. And they're learning more about you, and you know, that's...
Yes, but it's also always been a little bit by design that I have slowly and gradually been okay with wanting to allow people to kind of see in that side of myself. Both characteristic protection, but also just human protection, because I'm a pretty private person. I've always been a private person.
Protect your peace.
Yeah, and you know, I feel like now that, I mean, you see how non-active my social media is, so the more that I kind of like distance myself from that, the more I'm okay with putting certain stuff forward, because, you know, it's not the vocal points anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as much as I am not the biggest fan of social media, every once in a while, certain things draw me in, but it's more the experience of like sharing that experience and like, you know, giving fans that side of me, but also, you know, certain things that you're proud of that you're willing to share with people. And, you know, I did this video today of that same master we were just talking about, or that same television tape we were talking about. Because a lot of my style comes from martial arts, and most particularly like Muay Thai. I always kind of look at, okay, what can I do from Muay Thai that translates to pro wrestling, and how do I translate them? And I did this thing about this block with an elbow at the same time, which is an actual Muay Thai thing, and I broke it down. Partially also because I always want to like show people the little intricacies and small little details and stuff that I have brought into pro wrestling myself. But also in the hope to inspire someone and go, oh, maybe, you know, maybe I should also try and like step my game up, or like revolutionize the industry, instead of, oh, I'm going to do that. And I'm like, no, you should take that and then go, how can I do it my way? Because that's the knowledge, right? That's the experience. If you're just going to blatantly do what I do, you haven't learned a thing. Yeah,
it's evolution. It's supposed to be evolution.
Exactly.
It's not supposed to be copy paste.
Yeah.
It's supposed to,
you know,
be influenced by it and take it to a new level.
But again, that's also something that is very predominant, I feel, nowadays. It's the copy and paste method of like quick access and quick money. Yeah, that's the ultimate goal.
It's what they get rich quick schemes.
Yeah, it's quick success, but quick success is also fleeting very quickly, always.
I'm the king of cliches, so I call it microwave success.
I like that. I always say McDonald's because it's like a fast food lane of like it's a
rather than a home cooked meal that you'll remember. It's like I just went through the drive-thru and got me a number one real quick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I think that's a good analogy. Absolutely. Appreciate
it. Yeah. And we get into the meat and potatoes of you as a professional athlete. Obviously,
fitting meat and potatoes. Very fitting analogy. Terminology.
Yeah. King of segues too. No?
There we go. Damn it, you just saw. There we go.
Born and raised in the Netherlands.
Correct.
We talked off air. You said grew up in a predominantly poor area in the Netherlands. But also told me that it was very multicultural.
Yeah.
So is that where the martial arts came in, where the professional wrestling came in? Maybe some of the influences that got you into? So
the Netherlands is quite heavy on martial arts.
Okay.
You know, Kyokushinkai, karate, kickboxing, Muay Thai, those judo, those are all like very like alive in the Netherlands and have been so for a very, very long time. Okay. And like, we were one of the first countries to kind of hold more commercial style MMA events. We would call them free fight back in the day. One of the most famous one was It's Showtime that was held in the Amsterdam Arena. Which is where Ajax, the football club. It's not called soccer, football.
I'm sorry. I definitely said football earlier. I'm sorry.
The football club, plays. I think that because the Netherlands is such a multicultural society and my friends came from all over the world, you get influenced by a lot. And I was this like weird alternative kid that was into like death metal and black metal and hardcore. But then my friends were like into like more like hip hop and stuff. And then, in the era where, skateboarding was a really big thing, I was a skateboarder, of course, too. And a lot of my friends were like more into like Gangstar and stuff, and like that's kind of how I got involved with more of that underground hip hop, Afura, Immortal Technique, Jedi Mind Tricks, and even like later on a little bit of like nonfiction, like Ill Bill and stuff like that, Necro. And who was? It's funny because Necro has always been such a controversial, even back then, was such a controversial style rapper. But yeah, when you're like 15, 16, you've got that edginess in you, like it's the perfect.
It's like you're a rebel. Trying to be a
Yeah,
rebel.
yeah. I think that's kind of like all of us when we're like that age. You look for the threshold of stuff that you feel makes you rebel against whatever system you're trying to rebel against. It's quite normal. But yeah, especially like Gangstar was one of my absolute favorites, and still is one of my absolute favorites. Just as Liquid Swords is an album that I have on repeat, but also like going back to like Ice Cube and just like NWA and stuff. Tupac, Biggie, Exhibit, Eminem, early days. Like I don't think that other than like the more underground stuff, when it comes to like the quote unquote commercial side of hip hop, that was predominant in my high school. Like Dr. Dre's album, the next episode aired when I was in high school, so everybody was bumping that. So you go with it, and I'm already liking hip hop because like I listen to Gangstar and stuff. So you kind of have that natural progression with that music, and it kind of went hand in hand with what I was listening to in terms of like death metal, black metal, because back then, like that kind of hip hop was very like, that was very ossicized. It was being played and it was commercial, but like, the lyrics were pretty like, women unfriendly, they were violent. They had congressional hearings over hip hop back in the day, and so again, that is another form of like using it to rebel against whatever system, and it just fit perfectly in that norm. And I'm predominantly someone who listens to a lot of like alternative music and big black metal fan and big hardcore fan. I've always been like a lot of my friends were in hardcore bands and stuff, and traveling on the weekends with them. But there's something about that, especially that more like knowledge-driven hip-hop and an underground hip-hop that coincides within that hardcore and punk scene. It just works with each other, right? It's there's a strange threading between them.
Yeah,
I think nowadays it's a little different because I feel like hip-hop has become club music. Yeah, and it's gotten away.
It's become pop.
Yeah, pop is maybe even a better comparison to it. Because, and I speak about this with my wife a lot. And, every once in a while there's good songs. Like, I'm not gonna hate on anybody. I'm not gonna say anything. But the one thing I do feel is that for me, I can summarize the majority of hip hop with money phones, guns flashing, and everybody standing with a bunch of partially dressed ladies gyrating around. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I'm saying it's a lot of the same stuff, right? I'm not talking about the quality of it. I often say, like, I wonder when the first one comes along that's going to go, all right, I've seen all that, they've all done that, now let me do something else. And, it's always going to be one, and then the rest is going to follow. That zeitgeist changes all the time. Yeah. But I feel like the last few years, like, we had the SoundCloud rappers, and then it kind of evolved to this. And, like, we still have elements of that, and like I said, that zeitgeist changes a lot. Yeah. So I wonder what the next step of that is. I wish it would go back a little bit more to where it was a little bit more coinciding with certain, with other things, with other alley. And like, don't remember, the music is still super violent. I think it's more violent now than it's ever been. Yeah. Because a lot of these guys are just literally talking about the things that they have done in real life, and especially
telling of themselves.
Oh yeah, a lot of these dudes that are like, talking about like killing people and talking about their quote unquote ops and stuff, and dancing.
I killed somebody on Tuesday at 5 p.m. and brought my phone to the house, and and
and the police is like, keep going. Okay, yes, he's going to be where? Okay, let's go.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially in around those times too, like when they mention what people would describe as drug culture. Sure. Most of the time at that time it was marijuana. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now they're talking about Xanaxes and cocaine and
really heavy stuff.
And we see a lot of these people passing away because of fentanyl. The fentanyl.
Yeah. So sad.
And that's what I think that's where, unfortunately, where hip hop is now.
Like that glorification of that lifestyle.
Yeah, like this like poor kid Juice WRLD.
Yes, he was really good.
And
it was fantastic.
And then him swallowing all those pills and overdosing, like stuff like that. It's like,
but you can even hear in his music, he was really sad.
Yeah.
Like he was really not feeling good.
And it's it's unfortunate because now, these are, stuff like that it's happening more often now.
Yeah.
And now it's like I take pills, and it's unfortunately become what's glorified compared to when, the FBI was, and all these people are like,
you know why? Because we're not listening to them. We're not listening to that youth. We're not listening to them at all. We're condemning them. And now you might confuse what I say as condemnation. It's not. It's, like I said, the glorification of is because there's one part that is romanticizing that lifestyle and wanting to be involved in gangs or wanting to be involved with this culture, this lifestyle. But it's also because a lot of these guys, they're not. You don't listen to them. They're not being heard. And even that was even back then, and that's kind of why it's evolved, because we're still not listening to them, right? I mean, when I was young, did you feel like you were being heard?
Not really.
No.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't being taken serious, and I think that's the difficulty about growing up, is that with all this exposure that you have and these ways to formulate your opinions and out what you want to say, there's literally a million voices that drown you out. And even though it's a collective subject, you're not being heard.
Amen to that. Nah, you're 1,000% right. They're expressing their hurt and their trauma into their music to breathe.
Exactly.
And you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, it's getting worse. But hopefully,
something's got to give at some point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At least I hope it does, because a lot of these young kids, they grow up in circumstances or they are put in positions that a lot of young kids should not be put into, right? They are forced to be maturing a lot more than they should be at that age. But and if you jump to the side of that and you look more at the social media side of things, where I would hate to be 9, 10 years old nowadays. You get bombarded with what you think has to be done, and you think what has to be said, or what you think a life should look like. It's a confusing.
And the access, now, they're maturing faster. I guess in some aspects, because
I actually feel they regress more, but that's a different story.
But as far as they're learning things faster, as far as things they shouldn't know until they're older.
Absolutely. But and the reason why they regress is because they are thinking about topics they shouldn't be thinking of.
Yeah.
Take for instance these and I keep an eye on it sometimes. But take these YouTube pranksters, right?
Oh my God.
And I want to call them quote unquote pranksters.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they're not pranks.
Yeah.
But they do stuff whilst they're mid-20s that 17-year-olds would do.
Yeah.
And they are convinced that this is,
the way.
And then I'm when I was 25, and I'm not saying that I'm the example for someone who was 25, right? But I just feel it's regressing because we are preoccupied with stuff that 16, 17-year-olds would do, but they're in their mid-20s going towards 30 and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
And, I definitely blame social media for that.
Yeah.
In that regard, because it's that copy paste, monkey see, monkey do kind of attitude, and that's it's hard to find the root of the problem when everybody contributes to it, and everybody's being told what to do with it and how to implement it. You can't pull it away anymore. Yeah. Imagine pulling the plug on the internet right now; it's done. Everything crumbles.
It'll be.
You know what I mean?
That'd be Judgment Day for us. That'd be really Judgment Day.
I'd welcome it. I'd be very nice and quiet. But that's because I've taken my steps away.
Yeah.
And I'm sure someone's going to say, "Oh, he's just saying that because," and you might be right. But in my own mind, the idea that maybe for a couple of weeks we just pull the plug for a while, let everybody reset, calm your brains down, and then
these kids wouldn't know what to do.
Exactly. I think if they back in the mid 90s, early 90s knew what the internet would become later, they would have written laws for it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are some laws, but they would have definitely, because it's literally the land of the wild.
Yeah.
It's like a pirate ocean basically.
I mean, I don't even see kids outside anymore. Like I barely
Not
see
much.
kids outside.
Yeah, I drove past a place not too long ago, and it was actually fun. It was like 10, 15 kids all playing.
That's an anomaly at this point.
Yeah, they're playing outside, and I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
cool.
different. But you talked about your early experiences in life.
It will become about wrestling now.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. The social commentary ends right here.
Started training in 2002.
2000.
2000.
Made my debut in 2002.
In 2002.
Yeah.
Trained with Johnny Kidd.
Johnny Kidd, yeah, was one of them.
Later on, Chris Hero.
Yeah, Nigel McGuinness, Rocky Romero. I trained a little bit with Ian Rotten. I trained with Skyday. I trained with I trained with quite a few people, and did a lot of seminars. I worked with Nigel McGuinness for a while. Very insightful, especially when he was like in that peak Ring of Honor days.
He was on fire.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of everything, and then obviously Robbie Brookside being one of my main coaches. Every Saturday, driving up to Germany for like a 3-hour class, giving our money that we didn't have to attend these seminars and these training sessions. But so worth it, man. I have so many good memories of that. Just a crew of like me and like guys like Tanqua and stuff like that, who still actively, wrestles. He actually owns a company called Pro Wrestling Holland. For those of you who are wondering, there is Pro Wrestling in the Netherlands, Pro Wrestling Holland, one of the best companies. And there's also Dutch Pro Wrestling. Him and me and a couple of other people would drive down and we would just train. And we were just like living that life, like really living it. And I remember, because I was still studying at the time, I didn't have any time for anything else. Everything was professional wrestling.
You started training at 15, right?
Yep.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm almost 40 now, so I've almost been in wrestling for 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny, sometimes I see comments when I post like Muay Thai stuff, man, you should go to UFC. I'm like, I would get obliterated not only, but also, do you realize that I'm almost 40 years old? Like there's no saving me in anything in that regard. I have missed that boat, and I happily missed it too, because I didn't want to get on that boat.
Okay, I was going to ask.
I did compete a little bit when I was younger, but it was more like in kickboxing and penchak silat, a couple of fights. But, nothing to
UFC, Strikeforce, none of that.
There was talk back in the day, and now I have to be completely honest that I don't know if it was during or right before I went to WB. It was Glory, and I also think at some point the conversation turned to Bellator. But I was like, guys, I am not a trained MMA guy. Like I do kickboxing and Muay Thai. At least like back then it was kickboxing. Transitioned to Muay Thai later. I don't know how to grapple, and I like the thing is like I know some shoot holds and I know some like wrestling. Yeah. And because of like what I do in ring, I know certain holds and stuff. But if you would put me on with anyone with the slightest capability of like grappling, I'd be done. Put up a good fight though. But I like striking, man. I like punching and kicking. I've always liked that. That's been my bread and butter, and that's something that I've always loved doing. But yeah, that was a little bit of a rumble at one, but I just didn't want to do it because I also like in the event that, let's say, like I would have picked Glory and I was like, oh, let's go there. I'd feel that I would be disrespecting the sport because I would take up the spot of someone who has dedicated their entire life to being and Glory is a massive stage, I would take a spot and I would feel so bad. And I wouldn't want to disrespect my coaches, my trainer. As much as I love that world, right? Because from time to time I work with One Championship as well. I always have a warm heart for martial arts, and I will keep training martial arts my entire life, hopefully, willingly. But competing is something that I let the pros do. Same way that pro wrestling is what people would let me do. But it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy sparring or that I don't enjoy like any of the other stuff. Like about 2 years ago, I toyed with the idea of asking my coach, like, hey, what if I just take a regional fight? And I'm still kind of toying with that idea. But I wouldn't want it to be like publicized in any way. I would like to keep that to myself. I mean, win or loss, it'd be a private thing. It would be like, why don't I test my skills on this level, but who knows? Like I can still, the option for that is still there, but that would just be probably under my real name, and just, for me and my coaches, because again, I wouldn't want to draw any unwanted attention to it in that regard. I'm sure that the promotion that it would love it, like, oh no, these, but yeah, I wouldn't want to, I personally wouldn't want that, simply because, I'm not really the biggest fan of all the public stuff. So for me, it would be
just like a personal milestone.
Yeah, just to kind of go back at it. Like I've spoken to Bobby Fish about it a couple of times, because like he went back a while ago and he fought and he did really good. And he was just also telling me, he's like, yeah, I just wanted to do it. And I'm like, yeah, and that's kind of where I've been, like in my head and my heart for like a while. But it's like, let's just go do it one more time, and
just to say you did it, and like and
yeah, and maybe not even just to say that I did it, but just because it's, you train so long, and you put it in professional wrestling, which is a different way of competing. But why not compete in, I think you're training, but like, UFC or like actual like professional.
Just to like as an achievement for all the training you've done.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, you can do it on the pads, you can do it while you're sparring, can you do it when someone is like, going full blast? You know what I mean? So stuff like that.
That's cool. Also, we talked about earlier too, first couple matches, Rico Suave,
sure.
Anthony Zeus ended up being your tag partner in multiple groups.
Yep.
The Sumerian Death Squad,
yep.
and of course the Mine with some Big Van Walter. Sounds familiar.
Wonder what happened to that guy.
Yeah, who knows?
So yeah, Rico Suave is a Dutch wrestler. I've known him for a very, very long time. Started his own promotion at one point called New Blood Wrestling with former MMA fighter who also dabbled in Pride, Rodney Fafiris. He was a big name in MMA. Rodney always loved pro wrestling, so he wanted to do, pro wrestling. That kind of like went up and down a little bit, and they kind of splintered off, and they still were pro wrestlers. I don't know if Rico's still involved. I speak to him from time to time. He's just a guy that kind of like comes in and out, and he just loved doing it for the sake of doing it. But he wasn't. He was serious about promoting at some point, but I think the wrestling aspect was just like for fun. And Anthony Zeus, that's Michael Dante. That was one of my childhood friends, is still one of my closest friends, and him and me traveled all over the world to United States, Japan, all over Europe, ICW, Progress, multiple tag team champions. Yeah, we had a really good run, and then the Mind was like this little splinter group in Westside Extreme Wrestling that lived for a couple months. That's it. With indeed Walter, who was Gunter now in WB, that whole place, WXW, is like, it's such a melting pot for
absolutely
crazy talent.
That alumni is crazy.
Yeah, there's Gunter, who's probably the most famous one.
Drew.
So Drew wrestled there, but I wouldn't say he was from WXW, because Drew was more of an ICW guy. And then Claudio Castagnoli was obviously a big guy from Westside Extreme Wrestling. Some wanker named Tommy End. Don't know what happened to him, but that whole grouping, has become and even a generation that came after Ilya, he was someone that came in later. And rest his soul, John Kay, he was a really big name in European wrestling. He unfortunately passed away last year. This year actually. Time is moving
flying
fast and slow at the same time. I feel that my time in West Extreme Wrestling is the reason why you and I are sitting here. And I unequivocally mean that. As much as, there were difficult times there, wasn't great money, but the opportunities were great, the exposure was great. And it was one of those first companies in Europe that really utilized booking outside U.S. talent, outside European talent in a correct, fundamentally way, and brought them back repeatedly. You know, Bryan Danielson was champion at some point. Davey Richards, Paul London, Terry Funk was there at some point. Chris Masters, John Hennigan. Dude, if you look at that roster, it's crazy. They had Kento Kobashi, Misawa, Tiger Emperor. Man, like the list goes on. They work with Dragon Gate. I got to work like, you know, Little Dragon and stuff like that. And like Shingo, man, dude, that list goes on. And they've done such unique stuff. And they were one of those first really big promotions that started utilizing that and did it the right way. And because I got so much exposure, I made so many connections, I got so much experience working with these guys, right? And obviously Chris Hero, which is one of my absolute main trainers and someone who I owe a big part of my career to, you know what I mean? And him and me in our own ways have traveled the world together.
A very, I would, to me, like, probably not for the guys, but for fans and the industry, unappreciated, underrated.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know how important Chris Hero has been for a lot of us. Whether that it's given us opportunities or asking promoters to work us specifically or just being brought in. And like, Chris was always a heavy hitter, man. He was, he was tough, but very fair. As a human being, like, I always got along with him great. Bert, let me rephrase that. I think in the beginning, he didn't really like me much. And maybe he still doesn't, I don't know. But I have a lot of love for him. I'm glad that I still get to see him every week at the AEW because I feel like he's one of those dudes that has bags and bags of knowledge that he can pass on. He's just, when it comes to the wrestling side of things, he's just been, incredible.
Yeah.
I always thought he was a fantastic wrestler. Definitely up there as a wrestler, like, being one of my absolute favorites. If you're wondering who these other favorites are, Gunther's one of them, and Kyle O'Reilly is another one. Very, very important to wrestling. Very important to my career, too.
Absolutely. And you literally started from, like, the bottom in WXW and literally rose to the top.
The most undeserving, will never make it, has no appeal, fans hate him, he's terrible, position in life, in pro wrestling. And I think that humbled me a lot, but it also made me fight very, very hard for things.
I mean, you worked with everybody.
Yeah.
Literally everybody. Literally started, on undercard and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Saw you climb to tag team, eventually climb to the unified.
Yeah, I went all the way from lightweights to winning tournaments.
Lightweight, yes.
To tag team champions, to world unified champion twice, winning the 16-karat gold tournament several times. And, I've got those belts there, and I always mean to ask them, I would like to get a replica belt of the WXW belt, simply because it's been so important to me. That company, guys like Tassilo and Felix, they were so pivotal to my career and just giving me opportunity after opportunity. And I think they also saw that I was trying my absolute best. I think the first 7 to 8 years of my career were just like, and it's all because I wasn't being myself.
Yeah.
I feel the hard part of professional wrestling is finding who you are. I mean, that's the hard part about life is like, who are you in this? Who are you? What are you? It takes forever to figure out who you are. And then still it's not one solid straight line. Like you just go up and down and a lot of that stuff. That company really put me on the map and allowed me to travel the entire world. Anywhere from like Japan to the United States to even like my stuff in the United Kingdom, and then going into WWE and AEW. That's all because of them.
I mean, the guys you worked with, you won As we mentioned, when you won the world lightweight title, 4-way elimination match with Chris Sabin was in the match, and he has. I think at that time he was already.
I love Chris Sabin. I love Alex Shelley. Talk about two dudes. Have always looked good. Have always delivered crazy matches.
Yes.
And just as human beings are the absolute best.
Yeah.
Like both of them are sweethearts. And Sabin was particularly cool when I got to work with him. He was one of those first dudes that took me to the side when I won the first 16-karat gold tournament. And he took me to the side and he was like, "Hey man," it's like, "I know that this is the second time we've worked. This is the first singles we ever had, but there's nothing that can stop you." He's like, I don't know what's going to happen for you, but I feel like big things are about to happen for you, and it couldn't happen to like a greater guy. And he's like, I have a lot of faith in at the time Tommy End. And a year later, I got the call like, "Hey, do you want to come over to WWE?" And I was like, I thought about that for a second because I thought about that conversation with Chris, and I was like, "Damn, that's crazy." You know what I mean?
But like I said, the people you worked with, you won the tag titles, beating the Young Bucks on the 11th anniversary show.
Yeah.
Also, then I think a month after you guys dropped the titles, that's when you won the Unified World Wrestling title. Beat Alexander Wolf at that time, Axel Tischer.
Yeah.
And while you were champion, you fought guys like Jonathan Gresham, Zack Sabre Jr., Chris Hero. Same time making waves in CZW, making waves in ICWA, eventually becoming double champion. Like you literally climbed the ranks and made it to the top.
There was a point in my career where every company that was kind of someone wanted me to be their world champion, so that's not a bad thing. There's a picture of me holding up a bunch of world title belts, anything from like Fight Club Pro to Southside Wrestling.
Like Ultimo Dragon, like the Ultimo Dragon
picture. I mimicked that picture. I was like, I got all these belts. And you mentioned like a bunch of names, like Alexander Wolf, for instance. I feel he's someone who had kind of like the same upbringing as me, where he came from being somewhat undeserving, and maybe undeserving is a negative word. Let's put it this way: just not someone who you would see succeed
like
in this
underdog?
industry. Yes, and then just completely mind snap, and then just coming out and having just killer matches. Everything he did was just it was like a piece just connected with him, and he just like. Man, he ran that company for a while. Everybody loved him, and he was. I remember going, man, fuck, I gotta step my shit up, you know. So it's guys like that also like drive you, and like he's definitely been one of them. Gresham, always like super talented. That match in WXW, the one you're referring is still like I think it's one of my favorite ones, simply because I remember looking at him as like, hey. Whatever we do tonight, let's just go out there and absolutely annihilate it. I don't care what anyone else does. We have the main event. Let's just bring it. And he was like, "Oh man, you're speaking my language." And then like, we had such a fun match. And I think my favorite thing about that is that when we walked back, the boys were like, "Yo, you guys killed. That was insane." And I was like, "Oh,
that's
cool."
probably like the greatest feeling.
That's the best feeling.
Like beat that.
Yeah, that's the best feeling. That's the best feeling. And that's also something that, like, a lot of those boys on that stairs that were watching this match were the same guys that was with in NXT Black and Gold. So it was
absolutely,
really
yeah.
Yep.
And speaking of one of those guys, you eventually dropped the title to who's now Big Daddy Walter.
Or he's now Gunter. He was Big Daddy Walter. Yep.
This guy, he has so many names.
Yeah,
he's Big Van. Now he's Big Daddy. Like
He is also another one that like he was a very he was a giant dude. I remember he got bullied a lot, undeservingly so. And
Fat Lives Matter.
I don't know if it was because of that or just because of the people that he was training that he was roaming with was giving him a hard time.
Got you.
Like a lot of the times that I come from, that that kind of stuff, that kind of like that hazing stuff, that kind of still happened and stuff. And
is it worse that you knew you could kick their ass and you couldn't?
I don't know if I could.
No,
dude, like I was 17, 18 at the time. Yeah, I mean, knowing martial arts doesn't automatically know you can fight. You know what I mean?
But there's a lot of
even
people
though even though I had fights,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, I was so into what I did in pro wrestling that all that stuff always just I didn't let it step on my doorstep because I had different focus points. And I was always busy doing other stuff. And like, I mean, you see it and you like sometimes it would come your way, but for the most part, because I always really kept to myself and I was very, very quiet, other than like a bunch of remarks or just like some random bullying, I didn't really get much. The training itself, different story. But like the actual locker room stuff for the most part was quite okay, quite normal. But yeah, he was someone who came from that, and he was obviously he was overweight, and everybody in that circle kind of always didn't see much in him. And I think that once he started working WXW more, and he got the opportunity to go to Japan, that's where you saw such a change in him. And it just clicked. And his matches in Japan, his Big Japan matches, do yourself a favor, watch his matches in Big Japan. They are phenomenal. Him against Daisuke Sekimoto or Okobayashi, Sugiura, man, dude, he's unreal. Like, so good. And he quickly became one of my absolute favorite wrestlers, and he still is to this day. I think he's so special. I think he's so unique. I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad match.
I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad match. And it's funny because I feel like all of us that come from that West Side Extreme Wrestling, we're all like very violent in our movement. We're all like move with a lot of intensity, and like our striking is very on point. And like, I don't know if that was because we were in WXW, or that was just more that European style that we were taught, and then blending it with, other things. Like obviously there was a huge Japanese influence taking Walter on a path while he was in Japan that really, shaped that diamond that he was. And man, that's one of those dudes that I'm so proud of. And he deserves the world and more, man. Also, very friendly, always just a sweetheart, very quiet to himself. I mean, unless there now at this point stories pop up on him where he wasn't quiet to himself. I don't know. We never had that relationship. You know what I mean? We were just wrestling colleagues and locker room buddies. It's great to see that, he did what he did, and he's doing what he's doing. And then on top of that, my matches with him were at the time, for that era, I really loved them. I was really proud of those matches back then.
And also in WXW, you had Jushin Liger. Ultimate Legend. Yeah, his retirement tour. Yeah, it was very, very cool. And you got to work with him.
Got to tangle with him. I have a funny story about that. Whenever you work with someone like Liger, you make it about Liger.
Yeah.
You don't make it about you. You just kind of blend whatever you do in there. And at one point, I think we had a bit of a mix-up or something, and he was supposed to go for his Kopu kick. And I tell it to him, and he goes, "Tommy-san, one more time." I was like, "Kopu kick." One more time. I was like, "Kopu kick." I was like, "One more." And I'm trying to slow myself down as much as I can and give him room. I said, "Kopu kick." It's like, "Oh, yes." And he just nails me right in the forehead, and I just go, "Oh, God. Oh, God." It's like chops him right in the forehead with that Kopu kick. Like, Liger was such a tough dude. But then as a human being, like, so gentle, such a respectful guy, sweetheart. And one of my absolute favorite memories of, like, my days in WXW. And that was really cool because it was aired on Samurai TV in Japan. And that was like one of those, that's super cool.
Yeah.
I think my first match ever on Samurai TV was against Etoshi Aoki, who is also unfortunately no longer with us. The WXW's relationship with Japan has helped so many of us, so much. from Noah to New Japan to Dragon
The
Gate to
physicality.
Big Japan. Yeah, and also just the connections and just being seen in that world and fans wanting us to come over. Very, very cool.
And you also worked with a lot of guys. You mentioned Dragunov earlier.
Yeah.
You worked with Ospreay. Worked with Joe Hendry early on.
Yeah.
Are these guys that you like to hopefully face again?
I'll wrestle anybody, dude.
Okay.
Like the Ospreay match is something that I've actually pitched a couple times, because we had such good chemistry back then, and we've had some absolute barn burners, and it's also because I'm a bit of a catalyst for him because I force him to do different things in terms of his wrestling. When we wrestle, I would work his leg. I'm like, yeah, now you can fly. What are you gonna do? And I have a good relationship with Will, and I remember sitting in his dad's car, and his dad was driving us from show A to show B. His dad used to go with him everywhere. And I remember saying to him, I said, you're going to be a big star. I said, you're going to be a really big star one day. And I think at the time, the goal was Dragon Gate for him. And I said to him, that's easy. I said, I think you're already there. I think that's a matter of time. And then, his road went the way it went.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, arguably one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling.
Eventually, signing with WWE 2016, had a bunch of live events, or coconuts as they're called, and then then debuting in Orlando Takeover Mania weekend.
Yeah.
First match, Andrade. What was like stepping out to that curtain?
Oh God! First and foremost, I did not like that match. So, how do I explain this? It was like the production of how we went into it was wrong, and because of that, the match didn't come out the way it should have come out. I was physically ill at the time. That's also why, when I look back, I look very, very I'm just not in shape because I was just I was ill. Something that they didn't figure out until about 6 months later, 7 months later. Luckily got that fixed and all that stuff. And now I feel, obviously, this is so many years ago. Luckily, once that got cured, everything got a lot better. And anxiety is the word. I was terrified. Absolutely petrified. And it's crazy because I've already wrestled at this point in front of 5,000 people, 6,000 people, 8,000 people in France and the United Kingdom, because wrestling was booming at the time. Especially France had massive shows. But because it was WWE, I was like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. And, the good thing about WWE is that they know how to correct everything. Yeah. So once we did that, and it got corrected the way it should have been, business as usual. But for me, because I'm such a perfectionist, that was one of those things that I always kind of look back and was like, man, I wish it would have been better. But I feel like it kind of goes a line of how my whole career has always been, where I get dealt certain cards, and then it's adapt or die kind of thing. And I think I'm very good at adapting. So it was nerve-wracking. It was an incredible experience. It was humbling. It was insightful. It was knowledge. It was learning. And that was the thing that, made me want it even more, because I'm like, okay, now I know how to do it. I know how to do this. And the system of NXT, especially when you first get there, is very confusing, because they kind of trying to retrain you and kind of they want you to get rid of your bad habits. And you don't realize how many bad habits you pick up if you just left to your own devices. Yeah. Right? And it was just such a good training system. And I really feel that that's where I got sharp as hell. That's where I was like, okay, now I understand it.
But you guys were putting up bangers after that.
Thank you. It was one of those. I think it was the perfect storm, because it was a bunch of the older veterans like Triple H, like Shawn Michaels, Terry Taylor, Norman Smiley, Robbie Brookside, William Regal, Scotty Tahati, like all these guys that did it in their way, but they were not too far out of the element of what it was now, right? Yeah. And they took us, a bunch of guys that were like these ravenous, crazy indie dudes, and kind of blend their thoughts and styles into us and just shaped what became NXT Black and Gold, right? And I feel that era of NXT from like 2016, 2015 to 2020 was the best pro wrestling at that time. I don't think there was anything better. I think that you like, depending on what your flavor is, but if I look at it from the point of view of pro wrestling as to what like pro wrestling is at its essence, in that setting, I think it was the best pro wrestling there was, and I stand by that. And a very special, unique time in my life, absolutely.
And you were on a complete hot streak. You had a wrestled Hideo Itami, eventually wrestling Velveteen, which I think people weren't expecting to be a banger, ended up being a banger. Then you go all the way to New Orleans, win the NXT Championship from Andrade, which is pretty much a rematch from the year before. Win the title.
Felt much better about that one.
And then obviously the Gargano Ciampa thing happens. You get into the feud where Gargano costs you the title. Then unfortunately you said like you had injuries. And then get your revenge. Eventually you and Ricochet move up main roster. You guys are like workhorses working Raw, SmackDown, NXT.
Live events.
And you guys were just killing it.
Loved it.
Work your way to Mania weekend. And you guys are working 2 tag title matches. One against the War Raiders at the time, and then the Fatal 4 tag match at Mania, which that was my first time seeing you wrestle. Which I was excited for. You and I think you guys, people who weren't familiar with NXT got to see you guys in action, and probably like, who the hell are these guys flying around?
And a lot of that is also like Trevor Ricochet. He's such a talented guy. I think we were the perfect blend of styles, with me being such a hybrid striker and him being such a hybrid flyer, and then obviously my character being what it is and his character what it is. It was like one of those things that people didn't think was going to succeed in that way, but it did. And I think that whole time frame was like such a, so special. And I remember the road at that point where we indeed were like, we did NXT on Wednesdays, and then, we would go to live events on Thursday afternoon, we'd fly out, and then Friday live event, Saturday live event, Sunday live event, Monday Raw, Tuesday SmackDown, Wednesday NXT. Dude, I loved it. I loved it so much.
Foot on the gas.
And I remember like standing at the top of the ramp for WrestleMania and telling myself, if I feel nervous right now, then I should not be here. I felt no nerves. I just felt excitement. And I remember the match against the War Raiders the night before. I was so, and Ricochet would tell you this too, we were so sharp. Like it was just another night. There were no nerves, and we were just having so much fun. And that's what you get when you're just constantly wrestling. You're so sharp, And in a sense, I miss the repeated constant wrestling because it's a thing that I love, and it's sometimes the industry has changed so much where there's not like a lot of live events anymore. And there's not like a lot of like repeat matches anymore. And it's like, I think now if you wrestle once every bi-weekly or every 3 weeks, but if it were up to me, I would wrestle so much more. Like I miss the days of just repeatedly having matches. Absolutely.
Get drafted to SmackDown, move to Raw again. Have this feud with AJ. In the rematch of AJ, you got to get Undertaker came to assist you. What did that mean to you, having Taker out there?
A lot. Taker's always been very, very cool. Has given me tons of advice. You know, I think the biggest thing he always told me is force people to sell your character. You're not a regular character. You cannot have people do certain things to you, or like they have to react to you. They have to have a visceral reaction to you. And you know, and to this day, I still try to implement it. But again, you know, landscapes of wrestling change. I remember after the match, he was like, "Hey, kid, good selling. You took your time. I appreciate that." I'm like, "Oh, thank you, sir." You know, it was just one of those things. And he would like every once in a while, he would just take me to the side and he was just talking to me about like his character stuff, and it was just very, very cool because he didn't have to do that, but he did. You know.
Yeah. And it was just the compliments with the characters. You both had dark characters, so it was kind of like at that time it seemed like a passing of the torch with you two being side by side on the same field, and then eventually Mania, having your first singles match at Mania against Bobby Lashley, got your Mania win, which was, I'm sure it was like
very cool. Yeah, you know, like this. Like, the thing is, like I don't remember, despite the circumstances, which was obviously we're in COVID era now. I had this giant jacket made because I was told what the initial stage of WrestleMania looked like, and I was like, I'm gonna do this fucking crazy jacket and all this stuff because, like, you know, back then the idea was, you know, the angrier Aleister gets, the more demonic he presents himself. It's also why the kickback was like all the weird, like lettery kind of texture and stuff. And the way the feud was going, it was going to be like, you know, I would have every right to just be completely, you know, but it changed.
Yeah.
But I remember saying, I don't want to disappoint fans. I don't want to disappoint, you know, people producing us. I don't want to disappoint, you know, at the time, Vince and Triple H. I'm still going to go out there with the thing, and I'm still going to act like this is WrestleMania. I don't care that there's no fans. It is still WrestleMania, damn it.
And it's probably the first two night.
Yeah. And it's probably one of the most memorable ones simply for what it was. Yeah. You know, I understand the criticism on it because, of course, it was strange.
Yeah.
But it was still WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And the attitude could have been, I mean, there's no crowd. No, I was like, this is still WrestleMania.
Yeah.
We're still doing it the way we're doing it. I'm going out there. I'm gonna have a blast. I'm gonna have fun. You know, I had several conversations to how I thought I should wrestle Bobby, and I just wanted to make Bobby look like this hulking dude, which he is.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, nothing I try works, and he just like ragdolls me off and stuff like that. And I just had fun with that, man.
Yeah.
For even again, difficult timing, but it is what it is, man.
Yeah. So then there was this gimmick where Seth and Buddy put your eye into this steel steps.
Yeah. So the idea was that, and I can't dive into this completely because some of these parts are a little, you know, but the idea was basically that Seth obviously was this like cult-like figure.
Yeah. And
he indoctrinated Buddy's mind so much that he made Buddy do the exact same thing that he did to Ray as like a sign of like, oh, now I got my, you know,
prove your loyalty.
Yeah, he just tricked him into doing it, and that was the idea behind it. And of course, there's a deeper meaning behind the whole thing. And the like same as the room stuff, it was just never really explained in a way that it made, like, you know, they never gave people a lot of context. But like I said, you know, there was a vignette on my social that was supposed to air that never aired, and you know, the thing is, like, it's all in the past. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of times people don't realize that there's actually a lot more context with a lot of these things that sometimes don't air. And like, you know, it was in COVID era. There was a lot of like, we don't know what we should be doing, what we should not be doing. It was very confusing for everybody, and a lot of things got lost in translation. Yeah. And unfortunately, that was one of them because the actual setup was actually very cool if it completely aired. And all of a sudden, we were needed for that Raw Underground, so that whole story kind of got, you know, shoved to the side. And ended up with me and Kevin having probably one of my favorite matches in WWE. I think it was a Anything Goes match.
Extreme Rules.
Was it Extreme Rules?
Possibly.
I think I thought it was an Anything Goes because I remember there was a table. I remember he powerbombed me through the table. That was the finish. But we did the Meteor on the chairs, which is still like one of my favorite spots because like Man, like Kevin is such a trooper. I love working Kevin. Kevin is like he's fantastic. I don't care what I love Kevin.
He's really nice too.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, and he would check on me a lot because during that time, mentally I wasn't doing very well. He would check on me a lot. And he was always very kind, very friendly. And I've known Kevin since the independent days, and very very cool guy, and definitely like a really hard worker.
No, he remembered a shirt that I had wore like months ago.
Oh yeah.
And when he saw me, he's like, I remember that shirt that you were wearing, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, bro, that was like
months ago.
And it was like, but it just shows like he actually is like he's just actually a caring person. And
he does, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wow. Like to him, I'm nobody. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't say
I mean,
that.
I don't mean as far as like I'm a nobody. So, I feel like I'm not an everyday guy.
Sure. I think the misconception sometimes is that, fans think that they're nobodies to us, but that's not true. Like, I think that for me, fans are always very, very important. And I don't mean that in the cliche way. It's like, oh my God, thank you so much. But if you're telling me that something that I have done, a decision that I've made in my life to become this strange occult man on TV with this weird knack for storytelling, and you gravitate towards that, and you gravitate towards that enough for you to give me a like, give me a follow, give me a DM, give me a comment, buy an autograph card, buy a merchandise shirt, then I think that is very, very cool. Now, of course, I'm only human, and I'm sure that some fans are like, well, he was a dick. And I'm like, I also have bad days. You know what I mean? But for the most part, like, I always think that the concept of, like, that part, like, I hope that a lot of people think about it that way, because that's how I think about it. Like, someone, like, divulged enough attention towards what you do because it meant something to them.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
It's just more so if you guys see thousands of people.
Sure.
And it meant a lot that you're the guy with, I remember you were wearing that shirt, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you know what? I'm probably going to wear this shirt every day now. But it's like, it's just stuff like, it means a lot. So like, that's I'll always have that good memory of him. So
perfect. And that's like, and I can tell you from Oliver's perspective, that's what we want. We want you to have a good memory of us. We want you to have a good experience. Yeah.
And those people are, I feel like will go a long way because people will always remember that. Yes. It's one of the most memorable debuts, probably the most surprising because nobody's expecting it.
No, everybody thought it was like done for 3 months, but they never updated my contract, so I had a month.
And literally, I think broke the internet with your debut, attacking Cody, attacking Arn. Yeah. Tormenting the damn Nightmare Factory. Took out Lee Johnson, took out Brock Anderson. Yeah. Eventually leads the match with Cody at Homecoming. Yep. You defeat Cody. Then you guys, I think, have a rematch at Grand Slam. Correct. You defeat him again. And
then we had it in Orlando.
Yeah, and it was just crazy. And then I think you started feuding with the Death Triangle, and
I brought in the House of Black and stuff.
And you brought in the House of Black. Yeah. Eventually have the match at Revolution. Yeah. Which I got to be there for as well. I got to watch that match live in Orlando. Yeah. And it was fun. It was.
We had the first ever because I had this idea of like presenting the House of Black as a band, as like a death metal or a black metal band, and I wanted to do the kabuki drum. It was the big roll, or the big curtain that kind of like fell. Yeah. Because no one ever done that. So I was just like, cool in person. It was always like, I've seen it in music. Yeah. And I was like, hey, Tony, what do you think of this idea? And he's like, oh, that's great. That's awesome. Let's do that. So, he was very enthusiastic about it. That whole first part, the contract thing in terms of like a month, like for the longest time, only myself, Cody, my agent, and Tony knew about that, and we kept that relatively well hidden. Driving into Miami with me being covered in a pile of coats in the back seat so that no one could see me driving like internally into the hotel was really funny because we're passing fans, and Josiah from Russell and Flow, he was coming with me and he was driving me. I remember him just like, driving my giant truck, and he's he's a petite guy, so he's like in this massive truck, and he's like, I wonder if anyone's going to recognize your truck or just like basically go like, that truck does not seem like that belongs to that person in terms of the size difference in between the two. But,
fortunately, nobody did.
Yeah. No, I remember like one point I peeked out and it was a fan just looking in the window. I'm like, oh God, don't see me. And they didn't see me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was also the night that some dude just walked up to the ring and Jericho fought him, and Jericho punched him in the mouth.
I don't remember that, but that is crazy.
Good. You shouldn't remember that because it was ridiculous on the fans' part.
Yeah.
Don't do that shit.
That's
so weird.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Yeah.
That was fun. I just remember going, where do I go? And they're like, have you not seen the ring? I'm like, I got here when the show started. I have no idea where I'm going. So, I mean, we did what we did. I remember just like hearing that reaction. It was just such a good feeling.
It was great. It was a pop.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun. And Miami was a good crowd for it as well. And I think that everybody was just like, yo, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I think that people along the lines at some point were going to figure out that I was going, that I was headed there.
I think it was just the time.
Yeah. And I think that made it even better because like that morning I released this like vignette of myself being in a mental hospital, being awoken and being infected by something else, and that like leading me into AEW, and like again, like as I'm sure people will criticize that I like storytelling like that. That's just, I don't know. I like that part of being able to be creative. It's it's my fucking career. I get to do what I want to do with it. Yeah. So and that's the way I chose to do things. So that was and then we started working on the House of Black, and another one of the things that I really really like is it allowed me to have some form of creativity that I could express myself a little bit more. That was just like, good times. And I think Brody was like a good addition. I think Buddy was like really good because, people loved watching me and him wrestle so much that I think that.
And finally see you on the same side.
Yeah, I think it was unique for a lot of people. And
and a great addition.
Yeah. He's so fucking talented.
And he looked phenomenal. He's ripped.
He makes me look like I am a 5-year-old child. He is just unrealistically big.
He's just.
And then he'll come up to me. He's like, "You think I lost weight?" I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, I think I'm not lean anymore. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
No, he looks phenomenal, and you look phenomenal. You look phenomenal out there too. Like still,
I don't look like Buddy though. Like, no one looks like Buddy. Buddy's an action figure, but that's the joke between like us three, like especially with Brody. Like whenever he gets down on himself, we always like, dude, like, like Buddy, shut up, like shut the fuck up. Like you look like you look like you're competition ready all year round.
Yeah, if he got any bigger, he'd be on trial in '93.
There we go. Yeah,
but no, and,
you know what's so interesting about Buddy's genetics though? Buddy was quite overweight when he was younger. But if you look at his family, they were all big kids, and all he did was going from someone who was relatively like just like build, but also like not like lean to just working out and dieting. Yeah, and that's why he's the size that he is. He's so big. He's got a great genetic disposition. Absolutely.
Salute to his family. Damn.
Yeah.
But eventually, it leads to you guys winning the trios title, being the elite.
Yep.
Held the titles down for 6 months.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like the moment we won the titles, the first thing we did is go, okay, who do we think we should be next champion? Discuss that with Tony, and the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn were the ones that were coming up. Fans seem to love it. And, like I love Billy Gunn. I think everybody loves Billy Gunn. Yeah. Billy Gunn is the man. If you don't like Billy Gunn, then I'm automatically going to assume that something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And we just kind of came up with the idea.
I just posted, by the way. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just posted like in my wrestling chat.
Yeah.
The theme song to Ass Man from YouTube.
And the thing is, like, I want to make a note on the side here that I feel that the Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks did such a phenomenal job of making us look like threats. They got it, man. Like they did such a good job making us look like threats building up to our title match. They played their roles perfectly, and then like the match that we had, that's still one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for for that part. And then we kind of immediately went into
like building all in.
Yeah, who do we think should be the next champion? And discussed it with if Tony feels the same way, and it was a lot of fun.
And then doing the match at Wembley.
Yep.
I'm sure it was especially you being from Europe and all that stuff.
Working
Wembley.
a lot of times in the United Kingdom.
Working in the United Kingdom.
And it was very bittersweet because obviously Bray had just passed away, and we felt that we wanted to do something. Wearing white was incidental. This is something that we wanted to do. So I don't know, it kind of clicked in that regard. Probably one of the most memorable entrances we've done is the House of Black. Very, very crazy few months.
Yeah. And then eventually that leads to, most recently, this great feud with Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge, where you guys have this crazy freaking steel cage. With him pouring the blood, turning into Brood Edge, or Brood Adam Copeland, and Gangrel coming out of nowhere. I love Gangrel, by the way.
Everybody,
I love Gangrel.
Gangrel's awesome.
He's so nice.
He's such a fantastic guy. The feud with Adam Copeland is by far one of my favorite things that I've done in wrestling. It's like in my top 5.
Rightfully so. It was amazing.
Like him and me, we kind of like meshed that whole feud together, and he went to Tony and talked about it, and he, we got a lot of the stuff that we wanted to do. We got that in, and it was. I've always wanted to work with him because so he's one of those people that I talk to very frequently to kind of like relay stuff to. And I'll be like, hey, what do you think of this idea? And he'll give me his feedback. And I've always done that when it comes from promos to character ideas to match ideas. I was kind of like, he's kind of like my, I bounce off of him. So when we finally got to work together, it was just everything that I wanted it to be. And the cage match was
great.
It was definitely one of my favorite matches that I've done in AEW so far. And Adam is just, man, he's Adam Copeland, dude. Like he's, God damn it,
legend.
And he was very giving, and we had such a blast in there. And I just remember I lost so much blood in that match. They calculated I lost about a pint and a half. That's what they think.
Jesus.
Because it bled so long and so profusely. I was like, it was pouring out. But it added so much. Yeah. And also because you don't see me bleed that often.
No.
Right? And I think
it was only right because he poured blood on you in the ring, so it's like...
Yeah, it was just like that cage match had to be violent.
Yeah.
I think we absolutely added a level of violence in there that was like slow, methodical, but then also very precise and quick at times. The swerves in there, it was just like, it was such a, and his matches with Buddy and Brody were fantastic. Like that whole feud, that whole little month was one of my absolute favorite things that I've done in wrestling. And I'm glad I got to do it there.
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, Adam got hurt in the match. However, him finishing it, kudos to him. Like, shows how much of a warrior he is.
He is a trooper, man. He's a beast.
Yeah. But before we get out of here, I have a couple questions for you as far as hip hop. Who's your top 5?
Oh God, top 5. Jedi Mind Tricks in random order.
Okay. Yeah.
Gangstar, Jizza, Immortal Technique. This is difficult, man, because I want to partially say MF Doom, but it is also MF Doom.
Okay. God rest his soul.
Yeah, damn. But then Man, dude, you can't give me a top 5, dude. That's like there's too little in there because
Put
like
a 6
now,
man. Put a 6 man.
Okay, let's put Biggie in there too.
Okay. Cool.
But then I have to put Pac in there too, and then I have to put NWA in there too, and it just keeps on going.
Yeah.
You know.
Trust me. If mine changes every day depending on how I'm feeling.
Black Star,
Yeah.
The Roots, like
Yeah.
all of it needs to
Yeah.
now go in. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm short circuiting myself.
But I guarantee if I ask you tomorrow, you probably be like somebody else. Because I do the same thing.
It'd be a lot more people in there because even when I talk about the roots of hip hop,
Yeah.
for me, skateboarding kid, like I have to talk about the Beastie Boys.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Africa Bambaataa, you know, like
Party
I think,
people.
yeah, dude, and even like these offshoots like Afura and stuff like that. Dude, like there's just so much to all this. It's difficult.
Yeah,
You know?
No, I hear that. That's also brings me to the segment that we have. It's called This or That.
Okay.
Ask you some questions.
Okay.
Tell me which one you prefer. Again,
I'm ready.
These are opinionated, so please do not come
Clearly,
for him.
I'm very opinionated.
but
I'm not.
but you know, there's people that be like, what? You know, like no, we don't need that. We don't need that.
Okay, well, I mean, if this is the part where I get controversies, then here we go.
So first one, start off with Tupac or Biggie.
Oh God, dude, come on. Okay, so do I get to explain my choices?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this would be a personal preference versus what it actually is, right? Okay, so I would say Biggie because he has a fun way of like rhyming and has a very clever way of rhyming. Pac was obviously someone who was very like
Intellectual.
socially aware, and would look from the outside in and then comment on it, whilst also at the same time commenting on stuff that he was in himself. Biggie had a way of coping within that same, but he would kind of like funk it. You know what I mean? There was like this little flavor funk to the way that he would rhyme. And the things that he would rhyme are kind of like bending words to make them rhyme sometimes. And much more of almost like a toying way of being violent sometimes. But for me, it would be Biggie then, because that's what I would enjoy more listening to.
Okay. We have Gangstar or Mobb Deep.
Gangstar.
Okay. I figured I was going to
I like Mob, don't get me wrong, but Gangstar, like that is just,
Rock or Austin?
Damn. Austin.
Okay. Cena or Orton?
Orton.
Okay. Brett or Sean?
Oh God, come on. Shit. Okay, well let's rewind first. Okay, the reason why I'm saying Austin is because Austin used to remind me of my dad.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a similar look in a way, similar style.
Okay.
And no, my dad did not fucking run around the house trashing and doing crazy shit. It's just, it was an energy, right?
Yeah.
I always loved Rock because of his promos, but I am first and foremost, I'm a wrestler, and I saw Austin first, and I saw Austin as a wrestler first, so I gravitated to him immediately.
Gotcha.
So for me, automatically, I was always a bigger fan of Austin.
Okay.
However, from time to time, you're going to catch me on YouTube watching Rock's promos because they crack me up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously still having, those two had some of the absolute craziest matches.
Yeah.
You know? So I understand the question, but it's difficult for me to answer because it breaks my heart a little bit in these questions. But okay.
Then Brett or Sean?
Oh, God damn it. No, you said the Cena
or Cena or Orton, yeah.
So that is actually a really difficult one. I think Orton because I have shared the ring with Orton so many times, and in the locker room, and Cena is one of the all-time greats.
They both are.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Obviously. But I think I would have to pick from the perspective of me personally, and because I have a good connection with Randy. It would be Randy, but the thing is, like, if it would have been the other way around, then I would have I would have more of matches with Cena, and like it would probably, you know what I mean. So I'm making excuses, but yeah, no, Orton. And so this one is difficult, man. This is difficult. I think Dax from FTR might beat me up if I say Sean, but. damn, it's a fucking tie for me, man.
All right, we could do a tie.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, they were so good at their own perspective elements, where one was like on this side of the spectrum, and the other one was like, Brett was such a sympathetic seller, and he was so meticulous in everything he did. Where Sean was this like
great seller,
also a fantastic seller, but like in a different way. And he was so confident, such a showman, and like, you know, Sean used to tell me that. WrestleMania week, he couldn't sleep. People couldn't talk to him. He couldn't talk to his wife because he was WrestleMania. He would be completely wrecked mentally because he was heading into that match. He was so hyped. Like, you know, Sean had this incredible level of confidence. And I mean, we all know the story, but we also know the redemption story of Sean, right? And Sean was a trainer of mine back in NXT. And you know, the thing is, like, you might say, yeah, but that's not fair. You have to look at ability. I'm like, yeah, but both men had the craziest, most unique ability in the wrestling industry on their own terms.
Yep.
I can't pick one without the other because they are also you know, Batman and Joker. Like, you can't have one or the other.
I will say, if Sean didn't come back in 2002, it's Brett easily.
What's that?
If Sean didn't come back in 2002, it's Brett easily.
I understand why you say that.
It's Brett easily.
Yep.
However,
he did.
Sean from 02 to when he retired.
Yeah, well, it's because he got super smart to wrestling.
But you're in the hot seat. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't be able to answer.
That's. Yeah. No,
but we could, if you want to do a tie, we can do a tie.
That's a tie for me, man. Okay. Like, that's so difficult.
Okay. And this is a dream match that can still happen currently today.
Oh,
FTR or Edge and Christian?
So I would say Edge and Christian simply because I've not wrestled them. I've wrestled FTR, and I will welcome wrestling FTR any day of the week. And they know this. They know that I like, and I've said this to them. It's like, dude, if I could wrestle you guys 7 days a week, I would do it. But because I've never wrestled Edge and Christian, it would be such a, oh my God, I'm going to wrestle Edge and Christian. I would say Edge and Christian. But this has nothing to do with abilities, but this has everything to do with personal checklists.
Yeah. All right. Comes another tag team, two of the greatest tag teams, accolade-wise, Usos or New Day?
Oh, I fucking hate this so much. Usos.
Okay.
And the reason why is because the New Day has always been great. And I feel the Usos have made such a metamorphosis of with themselves. They have had such a traveling journey where they went from coming from their heritage and their culture to literally being themselves. Because I know them both. That's who they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because of that, I feel drawn to those guys simply because of their transformation that they've made, their journey that they've had. Again, it says nothing about the abilities, it says nothing about whether we're like who I prefer as humans. It's just like I'm looking at like the emotional tie that I have from my perspective and my journeys and telling you like how I started in terms of being most undeserving to, you know, where I am now. So I would say the Usos, yeah.
Okay. And this is a fastball down the middle. And this is also either sleeping in the bed or on the couch question.
Oh, God.
Zelina Vega or anybody? Anybody. Let's be real. Come on.
Anybody. Okay, what is the question, though?
Oh, no, it was the Brett and Sean one was a tough one. I'm giving you
life.
Yeah, of course. I
was like, Zelina Vega or anybody. There is no anybody.
Exactly.
There is just my wife.
Look, I gave you Brett and Sean.
Okay. So you actually wanted me to have it easy.
Easy one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will pick my wife 100 times out of 100 times.
Yes. I said this is
I will pick my wife 110 times out of 100 times.
I was like, this is a fastball down the middle.
Okay. I was just very confused because I was like, where's the challenge? It's always going to be my wife.
And this is a rivalry. Which rivalry do you think was better?
Rivalry.
Okay. Sorry. Austin McMahon or Undertaker and Kane?
Austin McMahon.
Okay.
Because it was you could see the writing on the wall with Taker and Kane, because you knew that that's what eventually they would go there, because that story was always on the board. Yeah. But the Austin McMahon story kind of formulated as the chemistry online started, the chemistry live started growing and became more of a thing. I felt like an educated fans in terms of like, oh, this is becoming a reality, where I feel fans who take on camera like, I hope they get to wrestle each other someday, and then they eventually did, right?
This is the final one. It's more hypothetical dream.
Okay.
House of Black or the Wyatt family?
As a match?
As a match. You think you guys are going over?
Going over? No, we never go over.
I feel like that would have been an all-time classic.
Yeah, man. I miss Bray so much. I grabbed my phone the other day, and I was scrolling through my message. I actually found like one of my old conversations with him, and I used to send him these like messages with his ideas and stuff. And one of the last things that he ever said to me was, don't let them tell you who you are. Stand for what you stand for. Because at the time I was like mentally not doing really great. And I was like, I have this idea, that idea. Well, which do you think I should go with? And he was like, it doesn't matter. It's like, just don't let them tell you what you need to do. Like you know what you need to do. Just stand your ground. And, don't let them shape you into something that you don't feel comfortable with. It's like, this is who you are. That's what you do. So stick to it. And it was, It's funny because, like, somehow, not even somehow, like, that is relevant today in certain aspects, right? Sometimes you just have to fight for what you believe in, right? And sometimes you just have to let it go. But in certain aspects, some of that is sometimes still true to this day. So it's like one of the last things that we ever spoke about is still like one of the most truest things that he said to me. So,
amen to that. Again, thank you so much for coming on here. I hope you enjoyed this or that questions.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys came in my house. I'm going to go right back on my couch. You guys get to clean all this up. Not me.
Well, thank you so much again for your time.
Yeah,
even though, you're off the social media, I don't know if you want to give the social media to the fans.
No, it's not completely true. Like, okay. I will post, just not as frequent as like some other people post. You won't find me on Twitter that much. Okay. That's the one place I kind of avoid. I'm not going to say that. Anyway, so you can find me at Malachi Black with BLXCK on both Twitter, even though I'm never there, and on Instagram. I do believe that that's also the name of my TikTok, which I don't really do much with, but we started sharing a lot of videos of like demonstrating some things that I like in wrestling, certain reversals, because I've had a duffel bag full of strange reversals that I either have never pulled off or have done, but I've only done them once, and I'm just kind of like showing that to people in hopes that, again, that it influences people to do something different in this industry, because I want this industry to always improve itself, whether that's from the human aspect or from the professional wrestling aspect. I always want this place to progress at all times. So you can find a lot of that there. Other than that, that's really it. Find the Dark Arts. If you type in the Dark Arts Gym, you'll find this place online, not actually in here. That's just about as much as my social goes. So.
All right. Yeah, you guys make sure follow the 2 pages. You guys, if there's any people who are interested in wrestling,
don't contact me.
Reach out to Dark Arts. But thank you again so much for your time.
Yeah,
I appreciate you. Thank you for opening your home to me for the team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, team.
And we out of here. WTRG Pod. Make sure you follow us. We're out of here. Thank you.
To touch the biggest stages, 20,000 in the crowd, but I can see their faces. They astonished and they shocked, can't believe I made it. Kept a strong mind, nigga, made it out the matrix. I had to flip that, sipping on this Dawn, the Henny clipped that. Lost a lot of shit, but I ain't never lose my drip black, don't skip that. Yeah, let's not forget that. Yeah, look, but let's get back to all the real shit that I'm imposing. For all them late nights, I gotta